Okay, so today I have one news article, and I was thinking about continuing last week's story where King Arthur, he actually went to sleep and told the guests to get something to drink and to eat, and let Kai, I believe it was Kai, tell a story where he was sent on a journey. We were about 1/5 of the story there. So let's get into it. This is a story. Let's see, where did I leave it? So many tabs open. Here, from the BBC News. 19th of June 2011. Parliament Square peace campaigner Brian Howe, or How, I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, H-A-W. He's dead, people. He died. Peace campaigner Brian Howe has died after a long, hard fight against lung cancer, his family has announced. Mr. Howe, 62, set up camp in London's Parliament Square in 2001 in protest against UK and US foreign policy. In March 2011, a High Court ruling obtained by London's mayor forced him to move his camp on the pavement. His camp, he was one man. Call that a camp. In a statement posted on Mr. Hall's website, his family said he died on 18th June in Germany, where he had been receiving medical treatment. They said Mr. Hall from Redditch, Worcestershire, passed away in his sleep in no pain. Courage and determination is the heading here. An additional statement on the website from his campaign representative said Brian showed great determination and courage during the many long, hard years he held his peace campaign in Parliament Square, during which it is well documented that he was relentlessly persecuted by the authorities, which eventually took its toll on his health. Brian showed the same courage and determination in his battle with cancer. He was keenly aware of the deeply concerned that so many civilians in Iraq, Afghanistan and Palestine do not have access to same treatments that were made available to him. Parliament, the police, courts, etc. should forever be ashamed of this disgraceful behavior towards Brian. Yeah. A local MP, Jeremy Corbyn, issued a statement praising Mr. Hall for his determination and honesty. He stood and camped in Parliament Square for 10 years. 10 years, unbelievable. Challenged law and above all reminded MPs daily of the consequences of their decisions. Easily made in the warm glow of moral superiority and jingoism, have consequences for all civil liberties and the lives of thousands of innocent people and generations that follow, he said. He made peace a daily demand for MPs and those who worked in Parliament. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to drop this link in the chat for people want to continue reading that about the camp battle and behind the protest and so on. It's sad that he died. However, what I find more sad is the fact that he was there alone and nobody joined him. I heard that there were people wanting to help and join, but that they were harassed and driven away by police. But still, this man has stood there for 10 years and there haven't been enough people joining him. If there were enough people joining him, might have had an effect. But 10 year, one man standing there, they must have had a laugh, huh? So that's a very brave, but yeah, like I said, there have to be more people there for it to have an effect. I mean, and not only just one day or 1 week. If we want to have a more human life, this system as it is has to go. It's non-human. It's anti-human, this system that we live under. Has been for ages. So, I guess Mr. Haw saw this as well, and he decided to stand at the Parliament Square. By the way, the word square is important in an occult sense of the word. You see these squares popping up everywhere on the globe, especially red squares. Also, so that about that. Now, before I get into the King Arthur story a little further, I would like to announce, just say it, just that people know that it's out there. There are different views of how our universe is made. And one of the views is that the Earth is expanding, as they call it. I've heard an interview years and years ago with this man who originates this. And he doesn't like it when you say growing Earth, because it's not growing. He says it's expanding. And it's www.nealadams.com, nealadams.com. And he's got some presentations there and some text. Drop that link in the chat also, people to look at. And the little I know about it, that I remember about it, that I thought, well, that needs to be checked and confirmed, because it would be a very important clue as to what's going on. And okay, I'm going to suppose that most of you have a globe in your mind and you know a little bit about what it looks like, okay? So when you go to the big ocean, there is it looks like a big slide, a big line curling down from north to south. I'm your host Walter, and I'm gonna continue the story about the Earth. If you were to say in London, you move yourself to the left. If you're in New York, you move yourself to the right. And let's say that every 500 miles or so, you take a sample of the ground beneath the water, and you do a test on it of how old the water is, the soil is, the sand that you get there. And then you move 500 more miles, and then move 500 more miles until both of them come about this rift. And they told me, and I can't confirm this, but they said that the closer you come to this rift, this line, this crack in the middle of the earth, the younger the soil becomes that they dig out of there. Even up to as young as 10,000 years at very close to the rift. And up to 40,000 years when they moved, I believe it was 5,000, no, not that much. Must have been 500 miles or something, I can't remember exactly, but it goes per 10,000s of years at that rift, that they say the age is of the soil beneath the water. So that would confirm the idea that it is somehow ripping open, like expanding or growing. How would you call it? Okay, so that's one possible theory. Another possible theory is that of Hollow Earth. And I've heard this before. I'm not a fan of it myself. I do believe it's more in the realm of fairy tales. However, there are stories out there, which I can't confirm again, about Germans in the Second World War having had bases there, and they were trying to find the entrance to this Hollow Earth at the North Pole, somewhere in that region. People that think there is a Hollow Earth claim that there are two entrances, as far as I know, in the maps that I've seen from it. It's one at the North Pole and one at the South Pole. I can only, if we're talking matter here and how the universe is created, and when you look at, when you take a telescope, you look out the sky, you will notice that there is an enormous amount of space there. I mean, there's more space than there is anything else. The universe is pretty much empty, so to speak. And an atom, for instance, they found out before 1900 even, I believe, that atoms had a solid nucleus. They found that out by radiation. They had this small sheet of metal. They made a small sheet of metal, which they passed radiation through. But they found, there was a gold sheet metal, by the way, they found that some of these radiation waves didn't get through. And they figured that it must have been then that the wave hit the nucleus of the atom. And they found out that the atom is empty. It's 99.99% empty. And even the outer regions of this atom, we can't really see it. It's a cloud, so to speak, they call it. A cloud of electrons, but it's pretty hard to see one of them. They are existing in a possibility field, something like that. They can't measure exactly where the particle is, or if they can, they can't measure its speed. And if they measure its speed, they can't measure where it's at. There are different laws going on in the regions of the atom, inside the atom, and at the regions of it, the far edges of it. There's another guy out there about talking about this subject, and he claims that all the atoms have black holes inside. This is the reason why the electrons are having so much speed around it. That's the only way they could be existing. If they had less speed, they would fall into the black hole in the atom, in the center of the atom. This claim is made by Nassim Haramein. Probably some of you heard him and saw his lengthy video. I thought it was a bit too much for little children, to be honest with you, especially the beginning. I had no trouble understanding what he said. I mean, it's almost too simple, and I'm still waiting for his peer-reviewed mathematical papers on this black hole in every atom. So if he comes out with that peer-reviewed, then yes, in smart Nassim Haramein. So that would be nice. That would be cool. But I haven't heard that. It's still supposed to come out, I guess. So that's another view on how the universe is made. Now here's a third one I'm gonna drop in the chat as well. This was discussed on another show. I won't mention it, but it's a fascinating topic, and it has to do with plasma. I don't know exactly what it is. I wouldn't know how to describe it to you either. But I know it also has to do with magnetic fields. And it also may have to do with electrical discharges and things like that. And it could be that in the past, let's say more than 10,000 years ago, the electrical charges of this solar system were still higher than much higher than they are today. I believe scientists claim also that our magnetic field in the past was much stronger than it is today. And I'm talking not 100 years or 200 years, but very much long ago. So there could be something to this plasma theory as well. So many things there about cosmology. Now let's see if we can get into topic for today. I was going to go as fast as I can through this Arthur thing. If you heard last week, we are at the beginning of a journey. We're now at page 9. I'm going to start right here. So I journeyed on. Oh, by the way, you can also call in. Now, let's get into this. So I journeyed on until I reached the summit of the steep, and there I found everything as the black man had described it to me. Remember the Cyclops? And I went up to the tree, and beneath it I saw the fountain, and by it saw the marble slab and the silver bowl fastened by the chain. Then I took the bowl, and cast a bowl full of water upon the slab, and thereupon, behold, the thunder came, and more violent than the black man had led me to expect. And after the thunder came the shower, and of a truth I tell thee, Kai, that there is neither man nor beast that can endure the shower and live. Okay, so Kai is listening here. Who's telling it again? For not one of those hailstones would be stopped, either by flesh or by skin, until it had reached the bone. I turned my horse's flank towards the shower and placed the beak of my shield over his head and neck, while I held the upper part of it over my own head, and thus I withstood the shower. While I looked on the tree, there was not a single leaf upon it, and then the sky became clear, and with that, behold, the birds lighted up on the tree and sang. And truly, Kai, I never heard any melody equal to that, either before or since. And when I was most charmed with listening to the birds, lo, a murmuring voice was heard through the valley, approaching me and saying, O night, what has brought thee hither? O night, what has brought you here? Hither is here. What evil have I done to thee, that thou should act towards me and my possessions, as thou hast this day? Dost thou not know that the shower today has left in my dominions neither man nor beast alive that was exposed to it? And thereupon, behold, a knight on a black horse appeared, clothed in jet black velvet, and with a tabard of black linen about him. Ooh, sounds like death. And we charged each other, and as the onset was furious, it was not long before I was overthrown. Then the knight passed the shaft of his lance through the bridle rein of my horse, and rode off with the two horses, leaving me where I was. And he did not even bestow so much notice upon me as to imprison me, nor did he despoil me of my arms. So I returned along the road by which I had come, and when I reached the glade... Hold on, I got to scroll. Oh, blub, blub. Okay. Where was I? Stupid scrolling. Always loses. And when I reached the glade where the black man was, I confessed to thee, Kai. It is a marvel that I did not melt down into a liquid pool through the shame that I felt at the black man's derision, and that night I came to the same castle where I had spent the night preceding, and I was more agreeably entertained that night than I had been the night before, and I was better feasted, and I conversed freely with the inmates of the castle, and none of them alluded to my expedition to the fountain, neither did I mention it to any, and I remained there that night. When I arose on the morrow, I found, ready saddled, a dark bay palfrey with nostrils as red as scarlet, and after putting on my armor and leaving there my blessings, I returned to my own court. Okay, sounds like he got a new horse, a dark bay palfrey. Never heard of that. I returned to my own court, and that horse I still possess, and he is in the stable yonder, and I declare that I would not part with him for the best palfrey in the island of Britain. Okay. Ta-da! Okay, nobody calling. You can call in if you like. 716-213-6816. You can ask any questions, doesn't matter what topic. Or if you have something to share with the people, 716-213-6816. Continuing. Now, of a truth, Kai, no man ever before confessed to an adventure so much to his own discredit. And verily it seems strange to me that neither before nor since have I ever heard of any person besides myself who knew of this adventure, and that the subject of it should exist within King Arthur's dominions, without any other person lighting upon it. Now, quoth Owain, would it not be well to go and endeavor to discover that place? So they want to go there now, huh? By the hand of my friend, said Kai, often dost thou utter that with thy tongue, which thou would not make good with thy deeds. Okay, in Dutch we say, when you say A, you must also say B. So be careful what you say. In very truth, said Guenhwyvar, it were better thou wert hanged, Kai, than to use such uncourteous speech toward a man like Owen. By the hand of my friend, good lady, said Kai, the praise of Owen is not greater than mine. Thy praise of Owen is not greater than mine. With that Arthur awoke, and asked if he had not been sleeping a little. So Arthur is awake. Yes, Lord, answered Owain. Thou hast slept a while. What the heck is this? He has to be told if he has slept? Like he doesn't know himself? Yeah. Is it time for us to go meet? Meet with M-E-A-T? To go to meet. Is it time for us to eat, I guess? It is, Lord, said Owain. Then the horn for washing was sounded, and the king and all his household sat down to eat. And when the meal was ended, Owain withdrew to his lodging, and made ready his horse and his arms. Ta-da! Okay. On the morrow, with the dawn of the day, he put on his armor and mounted his charger and traveled through distant lands and over desert mountains. And at length he arrived at the valley which Kinon had described to him, and he was certain that it was the same that he sought. And journeying along the valley by the side of the river, he followed its course till he came to the plain and within sight of the castle. When he approached the castle, he saw the youths shooting their daggers in the place where Kynon had seen them, and the yellow man to whom the castle belonged standing hard by. And no sooner had Owain saluted the yellow man than he was saluted by him in return. And he went forward towards the castle, and there he saw the chamber. And when he had entered the chamber, he beheld the maidens working at satin embroidery in chairs of gold. And their beauty and their comeliness seemed to Owain far greater than Kynon had represented to him. And they rose to wait upon Owain. And they had done to Kynon as they had done to Kynon, and the meal which they set before him gave more satisfaction to Owain than it had done to Kynon. Sounds like everything is getting better there. I'm going to continue here. You can call in 716-213-6816. 716-213-6816. If I don't pick up immediately, stay tuned. I will check the board now and then. You can call in about anything, doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be on topic, especially if you have questions. Why do I do these mythological stories? This one, personally, is also new to me, and I'm still looking to find a way to connect it to the rest of the mythology that I know. I had trouble with this with the I Ching also, for instance, when I started reading the I Ching. It's because the I Ching, it's Chinese, it's thousands of years old, it's written in a culture that we don't know about, that we didn't grow up in. And so they write in a different manner also. And so you have to learn first how they write, how they mean to bring across ideas. And so the same is with this English mythology and Nordic mythology. I also have trouble with, but less trouble with, by the way, with the Nordics. But yeah, they tie somehow to the rest of the mythologies. Because what I found out is that they all seem to tell the same story. So I hope that for some of you, this is a bit more clear than it is to me. You know, usually I'm not happy when I read texts that I don't understand and I have no clue what they're talking about. But maybe that'll come along the way. It usually does, by the way. So let's continue here. About the middle of the repast, the yellow man asked Owain the object of his journey. And Owain made it known to him and said, I am in quest of the knight who guards the fountain. This, I probably wouldn't be able to give exact examples of comparison, but it does remind me a bit of Gilgamesh and his journey. So, anyway, and Owain made it known to him and said, I am in quest of the knight who guards the fountain. A fountain is probably, it is to do with water, of course. Water is a mirror. Water is the female. You will find fountains or basins of water at occult buildings all over this place, like the Taj Mahal, for instance. But there's many more out there, also in Washington, D.C., for instance. Tall stones sticking out of the earth, you know. Fountains are in that same region. Continuing, upon this, the yellow man smiled and said that he was as loth to point out that adventure to Owain as he had been to Kynon. However, he described the whole to Owain, and they retired to rest. The next morning, Owain found his horse made ready for him by the damsels. And he set forward and came to the glade where the black man was. And the stature of the black man seemed more wonderful to Owain than it had done to Kynon. And Owain asked of him his road, and he showed it to him. And Owain followed the road as Kynon had done, till he came to the green tree, and beheld the fountain, and the slab beside the fountain, with the bowl upon it. And Owain took the bowl, and threw a bowl full of water on the slab. And lo, the thunder was heard, and after the thunder came the shower, much more violent than Kynon had described. And after the shower the sky became bright. And when Owain looked at the tree, there was not one leaf upon it, and immediately the birds came and settled upon the tree and sang. And when their song was most pleasing to Owain, he beheld a knight. It's a bit strange, this story, isn't it? I mean, it's like they're calling death and destruction upon the land, and then the beautiful birds come to play a beautiful song. Isn't that a bit schizophrenic? He beheld a knight coming towards him toward the valley, and he prepared to receive him, and encountered him violently. Having broken both their lances, they drew their swords and fought blade to blade. Then Owain struck the knight a blow through his helmet, headpiece and visor, and through the skin and flesh and bone, and until it wounded the very brain. Then the Black Knight felt that he had received a mortal wound, upon which he turned his horse's head and fled. So they were fighting on horse, I guess. And Owain pursued him and followed close upon him, although he was not near enough to strike him with his sword. Thereupon Owain descried a vast and splendid castle. What the heck is descried? Must be described. I think the B is missing. Thereupon Owain described a vast and resplendent castle, and they came to the castle gate, and the Black Knight was allowed to enter. And the portcullis was let fall upon Owain, and it struck his horse behind the saddle, and cut him in two, and carried away the rowels of the spurs that were upon Owain's heels. And the portcullis descended to the floor, and the rowels of the spurs and parts of the horse were without, and Owain with the other part of the horse remained between the two gates, and the inner gate was closed, so that Owain could not go thence. And Owain was in perplexing situation, and while he was in this state he could see through an aperture in the gate a street facing him, with a row of houses on each side, and he beheld a maiden with yellow curling hair, and a frontlet of gold upon her head, and she was clad in dress of yellow satin, and on her feet were shoes of variegated leather, and she approached the gate and desired that it should be opened. Heaven knows, lady, said Owain, it is no more possible for me to open to thee from hence than it is for thee to set me free. Okay. Truly, said the damsel, it is very sad that thou canst not be released, and every woman ought to succor thee. What the heck is that? SUCCOUR. For I never saw one more faithful in the service of ladies than thou. As a friend, thou art the most sincere, and as a lover the most devoted. Therefore, quoth she, whatever is in my power to do for thy release, I will do it. Take this ring and put it on thy finger, with this stone inside thy hand, and close thy hand upon the stone. And as long as thou concealest it, it will conceal thee. Sounds like Bilbo's ring, doesn't it? When they have consulted together, they will come forth to fetch thee, in order to put thee to death. And thou wilt be much grieved that they cannot find thee, and I will await thee on the horse block yonder, and thou wilt be able to see me. Okay, so they're trying to make a disappearance trick here, let them think he was dead. Though I cannot see thee, therefore come and place thy hand upon my shoulder, that I may know that thou art near me. And by the way that I go hence, do thou accompany me. Hard to read this old English. Then she went away from Owain, and he did all that the maidens had told him. And the people of the castle came to seek Owain, to put him to death. And when they found nothing but the half of his horse, they were sorely grieved. And this is also Solvinor Radio, because that's my nickname, Solvinor. I had that name long before 9/11 even, event that made me do some research into various fields. Anyway, the call-in number 716-213-6816. If you want to join the chat room, you can also do that for the interactive part. That's at Solvinor Radio, and then you .com, and you check the chat tab there. And some unknown in there correctly stated that fountain, which I mentioned in the previous segment, can also be symbolical for female sexual organs. So that's correct. And here, and maybe that's the same anon, I don't know. But it's more or less, I guess, what is known as common knowledge. How did King Arthur die? Well, I know one of two widely told versions of the death of legendary King Arthur. One theory is that Lancelot, I'm going to stop right there a little bit. Lancelot, what do you think that name means? Just take it apart and you get Lance a lot. Okay? He uses his lance a lot. I'm not kidding about this. I'll give you another one. Percival. Okay? Percival actually means perceive all. To perceive all. That's Percival. They use these words to mock us. Okay? So one theory is that Lancelot, once Arthur's most trusted knight and Queen Guinevere betrayed Arthur. Yeah, I remember that, which prompted Arthur to go to a war against Lancelot. Before going away for battle, Arthur left Mordred, his nephew, temporarily in charge of Camelot. But power-thirsty Mordred soon wanted the kingdom for himself, which resulted in a sword fight between Morther and Arthur that ended in the death of both of them. Of course, there's even a more mythical account, is that Arthur never died at all. Instead, after the sword fight, he was taken to the magical island of Avalon. On Avalon, Arthur recovered from his wounds and still wants to return to England at some dire future time when his countrymen need him the most. This legend is why Arthur is often referred to as the once and future king. Cool. That's from the chat. Okay. So, you can call in 716-213-6816. You can ask me any question, doesn't matter what topic. So, let's continue here. Let's start the last sentence over. And thou wilt be able to see me, though I cannot see thee, and therefore come and place thy hand upon my shoulder, that I may know that thou art near me. And by the way that I go hence, do thou accompany me. Then she went away from Owain, and he did all that the maidens had told him, and the people of the castle came to seek Owain to put him to death. And when they found nothing but the half of his horse, they were sorely grieved. And Owain vanished from among them, and went to the maiden, and placed his hand upon her shoulder, whereupon she set off, and Owain followed her, until they came to the door of a large and beautiful chamber, and the maiden opened it, and they went in and closed the door. And Owain looked around the chamber, and behold, there was not even a single nail in it that was not painted with gorgeous colors, and there was not a single panel that had not sundry images in gold portrayed upon it. The maiden kindled a fire, and took water in a silver bowl, and put a towel of white linen on her shoulder, and gave Owain water to wash. Then she placed him before a silver table inlaid with gold, upon which a cloth of yellow linen, and she brought him food. And, of a truth, Owain had never seen of any kind of meat that was not there in abundance, but it was better cooked than he had ever found it in any other place. Nor did he ever see so excellent a display of meat and drink as there, and there was not one vessel from which he was served that was not of gold or of silver. And Owain ate and drank until late in the afternoon, when lo, they heard a mighty clamor in the castle. And Owain asked the maiden what that outcry was. "They are administrating extreme unction," she said, "to the nobleman who owns the castle." And Owain went to sleep. What the heck is that? Unction. U-N-C-T-I-O-N. No clue. The couch which the maiden had prepared for him was meet for Arthur himself. It was of scarlet and fur and satin and sandal and fine linen. In the middle of the night they heard a woeful outcry. "What outcry again is this?" said Owain. "The nobleman who owned the castle is now dead," said the maiden. And a little after daybreak they heard an exceeding loud clamour and wailing. And Owain asked the maiden what was the cause of it. "They are bearing to the church the body of the nobleman who owned the castle." And Owain rose up and clothed himself, and opened the window of the chamber, and looked towards the castle, and he could see neither the bounds nor the extents of the hosts that filled the street. And they were fully armed. A vast number of women were with them, both on horseback and on foot, and all the ecclesiastics in the city singing. And it seemed to Owain that the sky resounded with the vehemence of their cries, and with the noise of the trumpets, and with the singing of the ecclesiastics, ending that sentence in a totally wrong tone. In the midst of the throng, he beheld the bier, over which was a veil in white linen, and wax tapers were burning beside and around it, and None that supported the beer was lower in rank than a powerful baron. I don't know what beer is. B-I-E-R. In Dutch, it's beer. You know, you drink to get drunk. I have no clue what this is. Continuing. Let's see. Never did Owain see an assembly so gorgeous with satin and silk and sandal, and following the train, he beheld a lady with yellow hair falling over her shoulders. And I'm going to read this little bit here. Thanks to Anon again. Unction, the word I just mentioned, the action of anointing someone with oil or ointment as a religious rite or symbol of investiture as a monarch. So that's nice too, the oil or ointment so used. So the unction, we know that too. And also beer. Noun. Yep. A movable frame on which a coffin or a corpse is placed before burial or cremation, or on which it is carried to the grave. Okay. Very good. And another comment. Revolutions don't work. Yeah, that's the lesson one could learn from history. There have been many revolutions, and it doesn't seem that any of them have worked, because at the moment we are still slaves. In some countries like China, the people know they are slaves. But for instance, in Europe, people think they are free while they are slaves. And a revolution is not going to be fruitful if it is not based in knowledge. You have to know what you're doing first. I mean, I'm here propagating the breakdown of society as it is because it's unhuman. It is anti-human. But one would also have to have an idea of what you want in place of that. So that's a question that's not being discussed very much because nobody seems to have an answer as to, well, what do you want then, huh? Well, we want a Republican limited form of government, for instance, is then the answer. Yeah, if you can keep it, like someone said, people have to be informed for a society to work. If you keep people in the dark, society is going to be anti-human. So I don't believe in these revolutions. We need more people informed about reality first, how this world works, how we have been fooled all the time. With this idea called money, for instance, or religion. On all those things. How can we have a society that is human-like as opposed to anti-human-like if we keep believing in these falsities, in these fallacies, in these false ideas? Okay. Someone put another link in the chat that I find worth mentioning if you haven't seen this. The Soviet Story. S-O-V-I-E-T. The Soviet Story. I saw that and it's a good documentary. Don't let your children under the age of 15 see this though. I don't think children should be exposed to such atrocities as you will find in the Soviet Story. Okay, let's see if we can continue. We were at page 15. Did I do the intro? Micro 1650 AM, Tonawanda, New York, Orion Talk Radio. You can call in 716-213-6816. Okay. Upon her feet were shoes of variegated leather, and it was a marvel that the ends of her fingers were not bruised from the violence with which she smote her hands together. Truly she would have been the fairest lady Owain ever saw, and she had been in her usual guise, and her cry was louder than the shout of the men, or the clamor of the trumpets. No sooner had he beheld the lady than he became inflamed with her love, so that it took entire possession of him. Then he inquired of the maiden who the lady was. Heaven knows, replied the maiden. She may be said to be the fairest and the most chaste, I don't know, chaste. This is Old English, lol. And the most liberal. Must have been written in a time when liberal was not a dirty word, so to speak. And the wisest and the most noble of women. And she is my mistress, and she is called the Countess of the Fountain, the wife of him whom thou didst slay yesterday. Verily, said Owen, she is the woman that I love best. Verily, said the maiden, she shall also love thee not a little. This is strange. Getting thrown from left to right, death and love. There is also some sexual hints in there. Continuing, and with that the maid arose, kindled a fire, and filled a pot with water, and placed it to warm. And she brought a towel of white linen, and placed it around Owain's neck. And she took a goblet of ivory and a silver basin, and filled them with warm water, wherewith she washed Owain's head. Then she opened a wooden casket, and drew forth a razor, whose shaft was of ivory, and upon which were 2 rivets of gold. And she shaved his beard, and she dried his head and his throat with the towel. Then she rose up from before Owain and brought him to eat. And truly Owain had never so good a meal, nor was he ever so well served. A strange story. I mean, seriously, who wants to hear about a man being shaved? Most people do that every morning, just about. Is that so noteworthy? What's really going on there? When he had finished his repast, the maiden arranged his couch. Come here, said she, and sleep, and I will go and woe for thee. And Owain went to sleep, and the maiden shut the door of the chamber after her, and went towards the castle. Excuse me. When she came there, she found nothing but mourning and sorrow, and the countess in her chamber could not bear the sight of anyone through grief. Lund came and saluted her. I don't know who that is, Lund. But the countess answered her not, and the maiden bent down towards her, and said, What aileth thee, that thou answerest not one today? This is, start a sentence earlier. Lund came and saluted her, but the countess answered her not, and the maiden bent down towards her, and said, What aileth thee, that thou answered not one today? Luned, said the countess, what change hath befallen thee, that thou hast not come to visit me in my grief? It was wrong in thee, and I, having made thee rich, it was wrong in thee that thou didst not come to see me in my distress. That was wrong in thee, truly, said Luned. I thought thy good sense was greater than I find it to be. It is well for thee to mourn after that good man, or for anything else that thou canst not have. I declare heaven, said the Countess, that in the whole world there is not a man equal to him. Not so, said Luned, for an ugly man would be as good as or better than he. I declare to heaven, said the Countess, that were it not repugnant to me to cause to be put to death one who I have brought up, I would have thee executed for making such a comparison to me. As it is, I will banish thee. I am glad, said Luned, that thou hast no other cause to do so than that I would have been of service to thee, where thou didst not know what was to thine advantage. And henceforth evil betide whichever of us shall make the first advance towards reconciliation to the other. Whether I should seek an invitation from thee, or thou of thine own accord should send to invite me. Strange story. Sounds like they're having a fight, and it's a bit strange then to ask for an invitation when you've just been banished, huh? With that the Luned went forth, and the Countess arose and followed her to the door of the chamber, and began coughing loudly. And when Luned looked back, the Countess beckoned to her, and she returned to the Countess. What the heck? In truth, said the Countess, evil is thy disposition. But if thou knowest what is to my advantage, declare it to me. I will do so, quoth she. Thou knowest that, except by warfare and arms, it is impossible for thee to preserve thy possessions. Delay not, therefore, to seek someone who can defend them. And how can I do that, said the Countess. I will tell thee, said Luned. Unless thou canst defend the fountain, thou canst not maintain thy dominions. And no one can defend the fountain except it be a knight of Arthur's household. So what is this fountain? Is it a bloodline? Or what? And I will go to Arthur's court, and in it and ill betide me, if I return thence without a warrior who can guard the fountain as well as, or even better than, he who defended it formerly. That will be hard to perform, said the Countess. Go, however, and make proof of that which thou hast promised. Luned set out under the pretense of going to Arthur's court, but she went back to the chamber where she had left Owain, and she tarried there with him as long as it might have taken her to have travelled to the court of the King Arthur. And at the end of that time, she apparelled herself and went to visit the Countess. And the Countess was much rejoiced when she saw her, and inquired what news she brought from the court. I bring thee the best news, said Luned, for I have compassed the object of my mission. Compassed? Is that another word for accomplished? Compass is a thing you use in mathematics. A circle, compass and square, secret symbols. What is this? For I have compassed the object of my mission. I believe it is then referring to a circle, because a circle is whole. They call it a whole, complete. Okay, a circle they call complete, so I guess that's it. When wilt thou, continuing, that I should present to thee the chieftain who has come with me hither? Bring him here to visit me tomorrow at midday, said the countess, and I will cause the town to be assembled by that time. Morrow is the word they use here. Tomorrow, as in the next day. In Dutch, we have the same kind of word. We say morgen, so you have the M-O-R in there also. But strange thing about the Dutch word morgen is that it not only means the next day, but it also means dawn. In the morgen means at dawn. So that about more or morrow or morgen. Morgan, you must have, the word Morgan should be known, is also a family name. But then it's M-O-R-G-A-N. I don't think though they are related though. So Morgan then could be tied to sunrise, which is again occult symbol. So continuing, and Luned returned home, and the next day at noon Owain arrayed himself in a coat and a surcoat and a mantle of yellow satin, upon which was a broad band of gold lace, and on his feet were high shoes of variegated leather, which were fastened by golden clasps in the form of lions, and they proceeded to the chamber of the countess. Now, I haven't been able to tie any of these, any of what I've read so far to astronomical happenings, so to speak, as is done in a lot of mythologies, where you see constellations fighting each other. But for instance, what's with my throat today? But for instance, things like gold and silver can be seen as the sun and the moon. Okay, in again, I don't know if you can call this occult knowledge or something, but also the Greek, for instance, they had a metal connected to each planet. And so gold is for the sun and silver is for the moon. Some strange guy on the radio talking about mythology. You know, so I respond very well to questions, really. And most of them, they fit into categories. And you can drag most of the questions into an area in which it can be made very clear that you've been fooled. And so I welcome questions. I love questions. They are great, especially when I can't answer them, because then I have something new to do. Yeah. Not that I claim to have questions, answers to every question. I mean, seriously, that will be like claiming you know the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And that, of course, is out of the question. But most questions, like I said, they don't bother me. I can answer them quickly out of my head. Anyway, let's continue with this story. Right glad was the countess of their coming, and she gazed steadfastly upon Owain, and said, Luned, this knight has not the look of a traveller. What harm is there in that, lady? Said Luned. I am certain, said the countess, that no other man than this chased the soul from the body of my lord. So much better for thee, lady, said Luned, for had he not been stronger than thy lord, he could not have deprived him of life. There is no remedy for that which is past, be it as it may. Go back to thine abode, said the Countess, and I will take counsel. Okay, there's a word in here which I should warn you about. It's the word soul. S-O-U-L. Sounds a bit like soul from Sol Vinur. Sol is the sun, that's S-O-L. S-O-U-L translates into Dutch as ziel. Z-I-E-L. It correlates a bit etymologically to self, which is self. So soul and self could be the same. However, this idea, because it's no more than an idea, there is no scientific evidence for the existence of a soul or a self. This idea of a soul is used by people that send you to war against each other to have their conscience clean, so to speak. They don't, first of all, they don't see you as having realized your soul, so you're dead. Then the second point would be that if you have realized you are your soul, which is quite impossible, but in their philosophy, the only thing that is really, the rest of this is a mirror image. And they claim then that because the soul cannot be killed, you are not doing evil. Okay, this is very important. This is how they talk good murder. You can murder people, it's no problem, because their soul will still exist. And all you have murdered would be their body, which is dead in itself. There is etymological links to the word body being dead. It all starts at Indo-German languages, and we get the western part of that. And it's the word we took it from is Körper, that's German. The word Körper, German, links to the word corpse in English, which you use as known dead body. But the Körper in German simply means body. It doesn't say that it's dead in German. In Dutch, we have a little different word for it. We say lichaam, but it's made of two words. Its first word is lich, and the second word is haam. And the first word, lich, is tied to the Dutch word lijk, which means a dead body. So your body is, in a sense, dead. The thing that is called alive is also the source of your consciousness, because this body is filled with consciousness, not only in your brain, as some will claim, because you can also feel your big toe. Not only can you feel it, you can also enter it with your attention. Attention is an energy that you have, so be careful what you do with that. I said that before. Attention is something that you give. Be careful with it. It is an energy that you use, and it has effects on your environment. Okay, I think I went off the storyline enough there about the word soul, how they use that to justify murder. Continuing, the next day the Countess caused all her subjects... Anyone calling? No, nobody calling. The next day, Countess caused all her subjects to assemble and showed them that her earldom was left defenseless. Her earldom. I'm still thinking here that this has something to do with bloodlines. This fountain, sexual symbol. And that it could not be protected but with horse and arms and military skill. Therefore, said she, this is what I offer for your choice. either let one of you take me, or give your consent for me to take a husband from elsewhere to defend my dominions. Yeah? So came the determination that it was better that she should have permission to marry someone from elsewhere, and thereupon she sent for the bishops and archbishops to celebrate her nuptials, don't know that word, with Owain, and the men of the earldom did Owain homage. And Owain defended the fountain with lance and sword. And this is the manner in which he defended it. Whosoever a knight came there, he overthrew him and sold him for his full worth. And what he thus gained, he divided among his barons and his knights. And no man in the whole world could be more beloved than he was by his subjects. And it was thus for the space of 3 years. Let's see, 56 ago. Let's see, we're going to continue this next week. We are at 2 paragraphs above page 19. So I'll write that down. I'm going to continue this next week. Page 19, 2 paragraph above. Okay. There we go. And this is the end of the show, people. If you liked what you heard about mythology, check out solvinoradio.com, and you can download other parts I did about mythology. It's more about the backgrounds of it. Mythology Explained by Ernest Busenbark and commented by me. That's SOLVINUR radio.com. Also check out defiantforyou.com. Kurt over there, I think he does a good show. And don't forget, check out the Jimmy X, who is coming after Maggie. She's doing an hour on Orion Talk Radio. And after that, Jimmy X and JJ and Popeye. I also like Popeye. It's a bit late for me, but I try and catch it sometimes. Those are good outlets as far as I'm concerned. And thank you all for listening. Next week, we're going to end the Lady of the Fountain. We got